G'day guys and welcome back to Raging Rhino. All right, a couple of weeks ago, I sat down and had a discussion with a bit of a normie of the Marvel Universe, and that normie was my sister, Nicole. She's going to be joining us again very, very shortly to have a discussion in regards to Black Widow. Now, there's a lot of news out there at the moment in regards to Black Widow, and I'm very curious to see whether or not she's actually heard about it, especially some of this conflict going on between Scarlett Johansson and Disney at the moment. So we'll definitely get into that. But after our discussion a few weeks ago, I feel like that went really well. I feel like it was really well received, and I really enjoyed doing it. And it's something that I want to continue doing. So without further ado, here is my sister, Nicole. Welcome, Nicole. How are you?
Hi.
So how do you feel that we went last time in regards to our discussion, just in general, about the Marvel Universe? Did you watch that, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I thought it was good. Yeah, I think it just communicated what my thoughts were and what I thought about Marvel in general, which I guess was the point.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed that most of the people that watched it seemed to enjoy it. I hope they did. I hope it wasn't boring or completely useless.
No,
but
a few of them want me to disown you.
Sorry, what?
I said a few of them want me to disown you.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, but no, I thought it went really well, and it definitely came across that you don't dive into these things as much as we do, but you still get some enjoyment out of them, and there's still stories to be told for your entertainment anyway. Any comments for any of the viewers or anything from the last one? You were watching it live, weren't you?
Yeah, I was watching it live. There were a lot of things that were said that I actually didn't understand, which goes to show how much of a normie I am. I was reading some of the comments and I'm like, I have no idea whether what they're saying is a good thing or a bad thing. There were a few comments that were hysterical and I was just laughing. Everyone else had gone to bed and I'm sitting there on my own little lonesome in the lounge room watching it, and I'm just laughing in the lounge room on my own. Felt like a complete loser. But yeah, it was fun. It was fun watching it live.
No, awesome. So we're going to sort of talk about Black Widow. Now, I haven't seen it. I have been keeping up to date with everything. I could say it's almost like The Rise of Skywalker. I've seen it without seeing it. I've had the entire movie pretty much explained to me. So let's get into this a little bit. First of all, without sort of diving into spoilers about it or anything, what were your general thoughts about Black Widow when you saw it?
Look, I enjoyed it. I felt entertained when I was watching it. There wasn't really a part of the movie that I felt bored or like it was too slow. Not that I can recall anyway. So, getting from the beginning where I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it to the end, coming out of it, I actually enjoyed it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you go to the theater to see it, or did you pay for it on Disney Plus?
No, I paid for it on Disney Plus. I wasn't going to, which I think I'd said to you. But Lee, my husband, really wanted to watch it. And we were in lockdown at the time, so we couldn't go to the movies anyway. So we thought we'll just spend the $35 or whatever it was and get it.
Fair enough. So how many of you guys watched it?
It was 4 of us.
So 4 of you watched it, $35. Okay.
Yeah.
You would say that's pretty good considering how much would it cost you to go to the theater with the 4 of you?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it would have, it cost a lot more than that, more than double that. That was Lee's point exactly, is like, we can't go to the movies anyway. And if we were going to go and see it at the movies, it would cost way more. So we'll just buy it.
Do you like the idea of that? Do you think that that's convenient, or do you think that it, should be at the theaters for a certain period of time, or do you have an opinion on that?
I think in the current climate with everything going on, I think it's good because it gives you the option, if you can't get out or if you're sick or whatever, you can still watch it at home. There was a movie that I really wanted to see. I can't even remember what it was. And it was one of the first ones, I think, that had come out that way, where you could get it at home, even though it was currently on at the cinemas. if we were in just usual life back before COVID, I probably would have a different opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
You would think that it should be sort of released at the theaters for at
Yeah,
least a certain amount of time before it
it should
gets
be
put
made
on.
a big deal. I do like, though, and I don't think this would have changed whether it was COVID or not, the fact that movies come out, if they're not released at the same time as they are at the cinemas, they are released very shortly after they stop playing at the cinemas. I've never understood why movies take so long to come out, for you to
After.
view at home. Yeah.
Yep. No, fair enough. I don't know why. There might be a reason behind that, but I don't know why that happens either, or used to happen. It does sort of, it's a lot quicker now than it ever used to be, that transition from being in theaters. But now it's, we've got all these streaming services. You can pay premium prices to see movies on some of them. Some of them give them to you for nothing. But anyway, we will get a little bit more into that later, but let's get back into the movie. So your general thoughts were that you actually enjoyed it. The other 3 people in your family that watched it, did they all enjoy it? Did they all get?
Yeah. The kids thought it was good. I can't remember if they said anything specific about it, but they seemed to like they sat there the whole time. It's not usually if they don't like something, they'll just get up and go to their room.
Yeah.
But Lee, I asked Lee specifically, and he said he liked it and that it was a bit different. I didn't clarify with him what he meant by different. I think what he meant was it was different to other Marvel movies. But he liked it. He was entertained. I think he had this sort of the same opinion of it as me. Like, we didn't love it. Like, we weren't like, oh my God, that's like one of the best, but we were entertained and we did enjoy watching it.
All right, just going into a couple of spoilers now moving forward. What were some of your favorite moments? What were some of your favorite things in the movie?
I think a good movie to me is one that gets sort of straight into it. And I felt like this movie did. There wasn't a slow start to it. It sort of just got straight into it. And there was a twist that obviously I already knew, but I did like that there were some minor twists on top of that, or one specifically. So I like it when a movie's got a bit of that where you don't really see it coming, or you didn't really think of it when you were watching the scene before. So yeah, I mean, that was good. And I think it was just there weren't any real slow parts for me. It was pretty good, like
constantly fast paced, and it rolled the movie. Like, did it feel like you were sitting there for as long as the movie went for?
No, and that's the thing. That's the thing these days with me and movies is there's a lot of movies that I feel like I'm like, surely it's almost over. Like, I think there's way too many movies being made, and it just gets to the point where it's a bit boring.
Yeah. Okay, so that one specific plot twist, whatever you want to call it, that you mentioned there, what was that?
The one that I knew about first?
No, not the one that you knew about, the one that you didn't know about and that you didn't see coming, yeah.
Okay, so we're definitely making it clear that there's spoilers.
Yep. Oh, spoilers, big spoilers, yep.
Spoilers. So that was when Natasha and her sister go back, they find their dad, quote unquote, and then go and find their mum. And it seems like the mum is very heavily still a part of the Red Room and under that Russian guy, whatever. And so they show up there to try and get her help with finding the Red Room and that guy. And it seems like she's just heavily devoted to him. So then, she says that she's called the Red Room and they're on their way and everything. And then a few scenes go by and you realize that that actually isn't what happened. And they hatched a plan together to defeat that guy.
Okay. What's that?
What's that guy's name? The Russian guy?
Her father, or the guy that's...
No. The Red Room guy. No, not her dad.
Oh, okay.
The guy that runs the Red Room. Anyway,
Okay.
whatever. Doesn't matter.
All right. Just in regards to like the characters and their motivations and things moving forward throughout the show or throughout the movie, was it telling for you? Was it okay? Like, the only reason why I sort of asked that is because, again, you went into this movie knowing that in Endgame, Natasha dies. So, you know, that it takes away a couple of the stakes, but like with all their motivations moving forward, did it all sort of roll okay?
Look, I was going to bring this up because I think this is a symptom of being a normie, and maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm just a bit stupid, but I actually watched it.
I think so. I'm allowed to say that. Anyway.
I actually watched it completely forgetting that she died. So I watched it thinking it was after everything.
Okay.
And then it wasn't until the last scene, and I'm like, oh my God, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think this is one thing I was going to say about what I potentially think could have been better for the movie for the normies, probably not for all you guys, but is having what's the word? Like a bit more of a rehash of things that have happened, and like a bit more of like indicating exactly when things are occurring in the movie.
Yep. So you would have thought that it would be better to them telling a story about her and Clint in Budapest.
Yeah.
Based on the fact that they mentioned that in the first Avengers movie, and there's a bit of banter between them, and like you remember Budapest very differently to how I remember it, or however that conversation goes. Probably would have been better telling that story than maybe this story, because it really identifies the time period. Is that what you're sort of getting at?
Yeah, potentially that, but also if it is just this story that they're telling, maybe just somehow reminding everyone of what happened in Endgame, and that this is before that, and
somehow they're going to be able to do that.
Like, or just like, I don't know, somehow doing
specifically identify that it's before like Endgame and the events that we see there. Yeah. Well, again, in Endgame, she essentially dies, so you can't really think that she's survived after that. But again, it's kind of where you come from, where this story is in isolation, and you've got to really identify it for the normies where it's actually placed in the timeline.
Yeah, because like, you know, I've watched Endgame twice, but I'm not as invested as everyone else on here. So the fact that she died hasn't stuck around in my head. So as I said, I started the movie and I'd completely forgotten that.
Yep. What are some of the things you didn't like about the movie? Was there anything that you didn't like? Any moments you didn't like? Any things that you didn't like?
Yeah. So I would have liked a bit more of what she went through in the Red Room, like her conditioning, her training, whatever it was. Even if it had have made the movie longer, I think, I don't know, that's just me. I like a bit more of that dark stuff in a movie. So I would have preferred that, even if it added half an hour to the movie. The other thing that I found highly irritating and actually distracting was Rachel Weisz's, I don't know how you say her last name, but her Russian accent. I think she, you know, I can be very forgiving with people's accents because people are amazing that can do accents, but she cannot do a Russian accent, and she shouldn't have. They should have just kept her with an American accent, I reckon, and it would have been less distracting. I don't think you might have thought for a second, oh, hang on, isn't she Russian though? But I think it would have been less distracting to have her just be an American or an American sounding Russian than a very badly Russian sounding Russian.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
Like, I actually stopped paying attention to the movie because it was so distracting.
Yeah. So it took you that much. It took you that far out of the movie that you
Yeah.
weren't even paying attention to the movie in those moments.
Yeah. Also, a bit of background on the parents would have been a bit better. Like, I mean, they sort of explained it, but I don't know. I think that would have been a bit like, even if they just added a little scene just to show how it all came about. Like, because I still don't know, were Natasha and her sister kidnapped? Were they given to them? Were they sold? Like, that might have been answered in the story, in the movie. I can't remember it being answered, but
might have been in one of those moments you tuned out of.
Yeah, possibly. It could have possibly been, yeah.
So how did you feel about Taskmaster?
Well, that was obviously the twist that I already knew about. So as we were watching it, I knew that it was going to end up being female.
Mm-hmm. Based on what? Me telling you, or you hearing it, seeing it somewhere else?
Only based on you telling me and the YouTube clips that you sent me.
Yep.
So I think this is probably going to be one of my sort of controversial opinions, but I actually think that her being female was appropriate to the movie.
Okay,
and,
why?
Because all of the assassins that are trained in the Red Room are female.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very female dominant movie.
Mm-hmm.
So when it happened, like, I was expecting to be like, because I was already kind of irritated by it from what I've seen from what you sent me, and just how they, you know, used a man's body, and a man, I believe, did all the fight sequences and stuff like that. That I think is ridiculous and contradictory and just
hypocritical and yep.
But I think the fact that when she pulled off the helmet, it made sense. It made sense that it was female, and it made sense that, another spoiler here, but it made sense that it was Dreykov's daughter.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough. A lot of people don't like it because Taskmaster originally is a male. And we see the CGI face put on and all this kind of stuff, and it does look ridiculous. And that's fair enough. But for a lot of, again, the hardcore fans out there, they want them to stay loyal to the source material. So everybody was sort of on board with, awesome, Taskmaster is the perfect villain to go up against her. And I just feel like to me, it's just that they do it because that's what's important to them. Well, that is what's important to them. Again, there's something that I'm going to bring up shortly that I don't know if you've actually heard about, but you know, they're pushing the strong female characters, and this is where they want to go with the story. And it just seems so forced in for no reason other than just that. Now, it might make sense in some people's eyes, like yours, in regards to it. Yeah, okay, it makes sense within the story. All the women that were trained there. So they've played it out that Taskmaster was trained in the Red Room?
No, there's another element to the story, which is a means of controlling the widows chemically. I think it's chemically. And so that they're basically unthinking assassins. They just follow orders. They're completely manipulated from Dreykov's control center, office, whatever it is. And so is the Taskmaster.
Okay, there is one other question that I've got here that was quite controversial within the fan base and everything, and that is the conversation about periods and uteruses. How'd you feel about that scene?
I don't remember that scene.
You don't remember that scene? So there's a scene where, actually,
is that on a plane?
yeah, they're having a conversation with their father, and
they're on a plane.
He's like, "Are you on your period or something?" And they go, "We don't have periods and we don't have uteruses," and blah 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 blah, and they go on about that You probably that was probably one of the ones you tuned out because of the Russian accent that's in it.
Yeah, no, but she wasn't in that scene. So
Oh,
no,
okay.
I do remember that.
Your thoughts on that? Like to you, is that sort of we know that Natasha had, you know, all her bits and pieces removed from when she has the conversation with Hulk in, I can't even remember which one. It might be Age of Ultron. I can't remember, but we already know that they don't need to double down on that and go that far. I don't think, and it's
yeah,
kind of
but I
brings
think,
me. Go on.
sorry, I think again from a normie standpoint, things like that do need to be brought up again because I didn't remember that.
Okay.
And I
Okay,
think,
so that
as
adds
I was,
context for a normie.
yeah, and as I was saying about showing more about what happened to her and all the girls in the red room, I think that sort of gives you more of an idea of just how like brutal and awful it was in there. And I think I would have liked to actually have seen more of that, like what they went through. So yeah, I think it was good just bringing that up. I can't really remember like if it went too far. Like I don't remember thinking that right now. Like, oh, that's a bit too far.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think just pointing that out reminded me of, oh yeah, that's right. That's what happened to them.
Okay. See, I kind of look at that and go, I don't know if that's 100% appropriate. I know it's just in the joking way that it is and the comedic way that they is, and they try and play that off. But, you know, there are 10-year-olds watching these movies,
Mm.
you know, and I don't know if that's 100%, I don't know, appropriate. And the reason why I sort of bring this up is because when Captain Marvel came out, there's a scene in that where they're talking about fighter pilots and all this kind of stuff. I can't exactly remember the context of the conversation, to be honest with you. I've only watched it once. But Brie Larson says, as Captain Marvel, why do you think they call it a cockpit? Right? Like referring to male genitalia. Now, 10-year-old girl asking that question and parent having to now explain that also that they can have a jab at men in, you know, being the dominant fighter pilots. You know, that's why I sort of brought up that question in regards to this, because to me it's a similar sort of aspect, but I suppose it did add context for you in that.
Mm. Look, I think examples like what you're saying to just openly mock one of the genders or downgrade them or whatever. I don't agree with that. I think especially because, as you say, young kids are watching these type of movies.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a fine line between telling a story and being inappropriate.
See, the thing is, though, is that we've been able to have comedy for the adults in things like Toy Story and
Mm,
those sorts of things, and they don't go that far, you
yeah.
know. So I just, anyway, that's just how I see it.
However, the Marvel movies, I don't know. I think they all are more tailored to adults. Like, I don't know what their ratings are. I can't imagine they'd be less than M. If they're M, then I think it's okay.
Is there anything specific that you thought of that you would like to talk about or let people know about the movie?
Look, I did have a bit to say about the whole gender thing and all of that in our last interview, but I did come out of this movie actually not minding the fact that it was female dominant and
Mhm.
it didn't, I don't think it pushed it too far. Again, this could be a controversial point of view, but that's just how I felt. Like it was, I found it tolerable and it didn't grate me or anything like that.
Okay. Do you feel like if they had a brought in Clint Hawkeye, it would have overshadowed um, Black Widow or Natasha?
I wouldn't have felt that way.
Okay.
I mean,
All
maybe
right.
that's because I've got a soft spot for him, but
All right. How did you feel about the end credit scene?
oh
It
yeah.
teases Hawkeye.
Well, for me, because I'd forgotten that she'd died, that sort of took away from probably what my reaction would have been had I remembered. Because
Right.
it was more like that scene happened and I was like, oh, you fucking forgot. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
but obviously it opens the door to another movie or a series or something.
Well, it's going to lead, I believe, into the Hawkeye series. So that's my understanding of where that was going.
Yeah.
And I know that you're sort of excited for the Hawkeye series because you love Jeremy Renner and you'll watch anything with him in it. All right. What would you give the movie a rating out of 10?
Um, my kids are going to laugh at me because I've got a number that I pretty much say for everything, but I would give this one like 7, maybe a 7.5.
Okay. Everything's a 7.5.
Everything's a 7.
7. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you enjoyed it. It could have been a little bit better. There could have been a little bit more context for you. It could have placed itself better within the timeline to give you more context of where we're sitting. You did like the female elements to it, and I think for a Black Widow movie, I mean, it's a Black Widow movie. It's going to
Yeah.
be revolving around Natasha, who's a female. I don't see any problem with that. It's then when they start doing things for me, like the Taskmaster, that's where I start having an issue with it. When we start having conversations that they even promoted to say that this is designed to make all those white straight males out there uncomfortable. And majority of the fans, I'm sorry to say, are probably male. I'm not going to necessarily say white straight male, but I'm just going to say male in general, you would think.
Yeah. See, I think that's what I was saying before about taking it too far. Like when they start saying things like that and start pointing out that there's ulterior motives to them doing it, that's where it's like,
That's where it
yeah.
becomes an issue.
Yeah.
Well, see, it's because it's not telling the story. You're basically just changing the story to put that in there.
Yeah.
You're not just telling the story the way it probably should be told. And it's not to say it may have made it any better, it may have made it worse, but it's still honoring the source material. For a lot of us, they need to start really looking at that. Well, that's pretty much the review in regards to the movie. I wanted to actually just talk to you about a couple of the things that have been happening more recently within the last couple of days, actually. Have you heard anything about Scarlett Johansson suing Disney?
No.
You haven't heard anything at all about it? Have you heard
No.
anything about the follow-up from that? Basically, there's the possibility that Emma Stone and I can't remember the girl that's in the new movie with The Rock, but they're possibly looking about.
Emily Blunt.
I think it might be her. I can't remember exactly. But anyway, there's her as well, possibly taking out lawsuits against Disney. Have you heard anything about that?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So let me give you some context to this now. She's filed a lawsuit against Disney, Scarlett has, for damages of $50 million because there's essentially bonuses that she's supposed to get through the box office, right? So if it makes a certain amount in the box office, she gets a bonus and all of this kind of stuff. Now, because they've released it on their streaming service, the streaming service dollars don't equate to box office, even though people are paying a premium for it, right? So she's come out and said, well, yeah, we made the movie and you paid me to make the movie, but in my contract, and you've now done a breach of contract, right? In my contract, we're supposed to have it in theaters or whatever. I don't exactly know that. We don't know the terms of the contract on whether or not it specifies how long it's supposed to stay in theaters for before they put it on their streaming service, or who knows in regards to that. But she's suing them for damages. They've actually come out and said, no, you got your $20 million. This isn't a breach of contract at all. So they've bitten back, right? Now, this is funny to us because Disney's fighting for the strong female characters. We want equal pay. We want this. We want that, right? And Scarlett's now saying, well, you're fucking me over. I'm a woman in Hollywood and you are fucking me over out of my money. After hearing all of that, like, what are your thoughts in regards to that? I mean, to me, we find it funny, the hypocrisy of it all. But go, what do you think?
Yeah. Well, I agree with that. And I guess going back to when you originally asked me about what I think about movies being released, when they're on at the cinema. I guess just from a purely selfish point of view, you go, yeah, that's great. Like, I don't have to go anywhere and I can watch a movie. But I guess when you actually look at the consequences of that, yeah, I can see how, you know, I didn't realize that even though we're paying for the movie, it doesn't count
to the box
towards
office. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess knowing that, like, yeah, I can see how that's not entirely fair. And yeah, that is very contradictory to what they are trying to push in their movies. And then, you know, it's the same with getting the character played by a male in all the fight scenes and everything. It's like, you know, well, that looks better, or you know, that character looks stronger if it's played by a man, or more what's the word, like, I don't know. I don't know what the word is that I'm trying to
Okay. So yeah, just with that, I mean, there's people that don't really feel sorry for Scarlett in the same token. I mean, she got $20 million just to make the movie. And I find it hilarious. The fact that, you know, they fight for the strong women, and then when it comes to the strong women coming out and actually saying, give me what I'm owed, they're like, no, fuck you. Anyway,
Yeah.
well, look, guys, that's pretty much it. I think we've gone long enough. Thank you again for joining us and reviewing this movie. It's been insightful, even for me, just seeing it from your perspective. So I hope you guys out there got a bit of enjoyment out of this as well. And thank you. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, guys. And we'll see you next time. Later.
So yeah.